so this is a new what if. Not sorry, this isn't a new what if. This is a part 2 of what if Callum from the Dragon Prince had the Omnitrix. Now basically, guys, if you haven't watched part 2, go and watch that right now and come back to this video. Or if you don't want to watch if you already watched part 1, just, stay and enjoy. So guys, basically, let's start where we last left off. We last left off where Callum, Callum, Rayla, and Israel got away from their aunts, and they're camping out at a log. After Callum found out his whole entire, trinket or whatever glow toy thing he ever got, he was testing it out. Eventually, he saw that it had some sort of effect towards the Omnitrix. He tried putting it towards the Omnitrix again and again, and it kept on glowing. The whole cube kept on glowing completely green, and the Omnitrix started going back and forth, and the dial kept on going back and up and up and down, up and down. Each time the cube got or touched it. Basically, he was kind of, well, intrigued by this. He put it next to the orb, and then he put it next to pretty much Rayla. And it seemed to glow some sort of, color towards Rhea. Now, Rhea pretty much got up saying to stop that now. And pretty much, Callum saying it's pretty cool, isn't it? Pretty much, they start walking around. Pretty much, Rayla says, I'm going to get some food. And Israel tells her we have food, taking out a loaf of bread that they found at the cabin. And her saying that that isn't food. I thought that was a sack of clubs. Her pretty much swinging it around like it's a sack of club or like a bat of some sorts. She drops it and it falls into a rock and cracks it. And that's what we know. Food isn't that good if it cracks a rock or breaks something. So basically, we skip towards the castle, and we're just gonna skim through the castle the castle parts because Callum's in there, and the Omnitrix didn't really change that part of the story. So yeah, so basically, Rayla is just around the pretty much forest, around on a cliff, looking around and trying to cut off the bind on her wrist, trying to get it off. When she hears Callum yelling out for help, she eventually gets there, seeing Callum messing with the Omnitrix, and Callum starting some sort of forest fire. And basically, he transforms in the heat blast, and him in his heat blast form, making some sort of forest fire. Now, pretty much, Rayla tries to tell him to calm down and to stop it. Pretty much, he starts waving his hands around, making more fire, him saying this is, crazy. He eventually calms down after Rayla saying to shut up and just calm down. He eventually calms down and tries to stop the fire. He focuses and he absorbs all the flames back into his body and times out at that exact moment. He didn't really time out, he just detransformed. So basically, pretty much, Callum and Rayla and Israel pretty much look at each other, and most of, Israel and Rayla just look at Callum like he's stupid. So, basically, Callum, Rayla, and Israel are about to go on foot, or pretty much they were about to go on foot, to go to get to Zadia. Now, basically, Rayla is told by Callum, why should we be going on foot while we should let the river do the walking? Pretty much pointing towards the boat, telling him to take the river. Now she says no, we have to go on foot. They start arguing for a little bit. Pretty much they're about to go on land. They're about to go on foot, but Callum tricks Rayla into saying, "So you're pretty much a cool, super cool, warrior elfin person, but you're afraid of little splish splash." Pretty much, she starts getting irritated, not trying to back down, and just says, "Let's take the stupid boat." Pretty much passing by both of them, pushing them out the way. Now, pretty much Callum smirks at this, but Israel and them just look at her like she's a little bit crazy because she just starts stomping towards the boat. Now, before that happened, pretty much, well, after the whole entire boat thing happened, we get skip back to the castle. The castle has the same conversation, but also Aunt Amaya says something about, the thing on, pretty much Callum's wrist, saying that he transformed into some sort of creature. Now, basically, well, the wizard is pretty much kind of intrigued by this. But we get switched back to, but before we switch back to the boys, basically a castle. They were just arguing about the throne and how to find, they have to find the boys before they, find another, pretty much, heir to the throne. Or, another king or queen. So, pretty much, they get on the river and they're pretty much, riding the boat. Now, they start talking about things, and they start talking about bait and how he got his name, about how bait species is very, very delicious, somehow, and pretty much bait, or fishermen, use it to collect very big fish. Now, Israel gets kind of angry by this, them just talking about bait like he's, food. Basically, him, arguing with Callum. And pretty much, Callum starts asking questions about, well, Azadia, and all sorts of stuff about how the place is completely consumed by magic, right? She starts explaining about magic and how it's everywhere, Zadia, and it's like seeing nature everywhere. So basically, you know, Callum is very, well, intrigued by this. Pretty much Callum and them starts talking, and Callum asks his last question, how are your parents? And pretty much, Rayla answers with her parents are dead. Pretty much, Callum saying, I didn't mean that like that, sorry. Pretty much him looking and pretty much telling, or asking Rayla last question, are you sure you're afraid of water? Like, are you afraid of water? Pretty much she says, I'm done with the questions. Pretty much him saying, no, look. And then looking at a waterfall or some sort of, steep waterfall. And pretty much they start, panicking. Or mainly Rayla starts panicking the most. Now Rayla starts saying, I hate the water, it makes me sick, and I hate it so much. Pretty much saying to pull the boat over. Now pretty much Callum says too late, and pretty much Rayla says to use your thing and, stop this, right now. Pretty much Callum saying, no, I think this would be a good learning experience for us. Pretty much them going around the river and splashing around everywhere. Pretty much they arrive near the pond and the end of the river, basically them being distracted after Bait got off the, boat, but Bait gets back to the boats, pretty much paddling back to the boat, and them pretty much wandering around. And now, pretty much Rayla asks Callum, why is the, cube glowing? Him looking at it, seeing that the ocean ruin is glowing, but I've never seen it glow. Him coming to a conclusion saying that, wait, why is it glowing when a huge monstrous fish pretty much, blows the ship up, or pretty much bumps the boat so hard that it falls up into the sky. No, it pretty much flies up into the sky and falls back down. Pretty much, they all fall into the water, but except for Rayla, Rayla falls onto the shore. Rayla pretty much looks and says that Bait needs help, saying to look behind you. Pretty much them getting kind of confused, but also hearing, eventually hearing that Bait needs help. Now, Callum sees this and sees maybe I should do something. Pretty much going for the Omnitrix under the water, just slamming it down, not really wishing for anything special, just enough to take down the monster, or the creature. Him transforming into none other than Callum transforms into Ripjaws and swims down to the water looking for Bait. He eventually gets Bait, grabbing him and swimming him as fast as possible away from the sea monster, grabbing Israel under the water, dragging him down to the water towards the shore, getting to the shore pretty fast. Basically, they get to the shore, and pretty much Rayla is told by, well, Ripjaws or Callum while he's Ripjaws form, saying that this is pretty, pretty fun. Pretty much Callum timing out, but looking behind himself, seeing the pretty much sea monster grab him and pull him back into the water. She yells out Callum's name, and pretty much Callum's under the water, timed out, trying to get away from the pretty much sea monster. Now Rayla jumps back into the water, pretty much saving the day, grabbing Callum, getting him out there as fast as possible, being pretty much doing her heroic thing, and being complimented by pretty much Callum saying that you saved my life, hugging pretty much, Rayla. Now Rayla kind of blushes, but just shrugs it off, pretty much saying let's get back on track and go to get to Sadia. Now basically for the whole entire remainder of the situation, basically Callum and Rayla have the same type of conversation, a little bit more winded out, but having the same type of conversation about how Rayla tells them about her parents and how they're not really dead, and about they were cowards and they failed their duty by guarding the dragging egg. Pretty much her saying that I was ashamed of my parents and I wish they were dead. But basically, Callum says, "Oh, I'm sorry," and pretty much her saying everything that she said in canon and saying that basically that's what happened. Pretty much them looking at the boat's fading away, but the boat shifts back towards them. But Callum pushes it back out into the water, saying, "Oh, goodbye, boat. Let's go on land." Pretty much Rayla saying thank you for that, and pretty much them getting back on, track, getting back to Zadia. Now, after that, we skip to the next episode, and episode 6. Now, basically, for the whole entire, we just get back to the castle and get shown the elf that was pretty much taken captive and imprisoned, but pretty much still being, imprisoned. Now, basically, we switch back to the group. Rayla, Israel, and Callum sleeping under a tree, and Rayla sleeping on top of the tree. Now, pretty much Callum wakes up first, looking at the Omnitrix, seeing that it was pretty much twitching or tweaking, or like changing. Not really changing, but just malfunctioning. He started looking at it, and it started turning yellow, scanning around. It pretty much started getting louder and beeping, and the beeping got louder until he was right underneath Rayla. He jumped on top of the tree, climbing on there, scanning Rayla's DNA. Pretty much, the Omnitrix slightly grabbing or slightly touching Rayla's hair, and the Omnitrix scanning the DNA and scanning, well, elf DNA. And Cal can transform into the male version of him if he was, an elf. The version of him if he was an elf. So basically, Callum looks at the Omnitrix saying that the Omnitrix is basically saying new alien DNA required. Callum's kind of confused, the alien, but just brushes it off. Basically, looking down at his brother and the rest of the group, pretty much slowly waking up. Him going back to his sleeping place, pretty much just acting like he's still asleep. They wake him up. No, they think they wake him up. Pretty much Callum waking up and saying, well, that was, interesting yesterday. They get back up and they say to, pretty much, they do the same thing like Cannon, getting on the road. But before Callum actually went away, Callum actually did see pretty much Rayla's wrist becoming purplish, but he didn't see anything of it, just thinking it was some sort of elf thing. So, but before any of them pretty much woke them up, they were still kind of asleep, because, to be honest, that whole entire situation when pretty much, Callum looked at Rayla's arm, that was all a dream. Literally, it was all a dream. But we get switched back to reality when we see some sort of man slowly walking towards the group and seeing that it was the same man, the man that was sent from Aunt Maya to pretty much save the boys. Now, the man messes up and pretty much jumps or steps on a twig, alerting Rayla. Rayla wakes up pretty much springs out of her sleep very quickly, looking around. Pretty much Israel wakes up, alerting Callum to, wake up. Now, when Rayla was, looking around, she did get captured, or slightly got away, but was fighting the bounty hunter that was sent to save the boys. So basically, Callum was woken up by Israel. Basically, we skip back to Rayla, and basically, Callum and pretty much Israel had the same type of conversation that they did in canon. Then pretty much us switching back to Rayla and the bounty hunter fighting. They start fighting for a pretty long amount of time. When Rayla yells out in pain, he's pretty much alerting Callum. Callum takes out the Omnitrix, saying to stay right here, Israel. Him transforming into Callum transforms into Accelerate, running into the forest, pretty much seeing and running around trying to find Rayla. He sees Rayla fighting the bounty hunter over the cliff, pretty much looking around, seeing how he can get down there. Basically, he looks down more and more, but doesn't see Rayla. Rayla gets back up on the cliff, saying that, why you up? Pretty much, Callum, watching the whole entire situation, how, Rayla won, and pretty much Callum saying, well, I got at least like 9 more minutes of, you know, accelerate. So basically, Rayla pretty much, you know, well, basically Rayla suggests for, Callum to transform into something bigger that can fly a long time, so we can get to Zadia faster. And basically, Callum says I can't transform into creature to creature while I'm already transformed into. And I only do it for 10 minutes. So 10 minutes of super speed won't really get us to Zadia pretty quickly. It won't really get us there. It would do some progress, but it won't really get us there that quickly. Now basically, we could switch back to Israel petting Bait, pretty much just waiting for them to get back. They get back, pretty much accelerate, or pretty much Callum grabbing Rayla and pretty much super speeding back towards the area where, Israel and Bait are, pretty much saying that, it was just a bounty hunter that was sent to get us. Now, pretty much Callum, something in this canon, Callum knows about the whole entire bounty hunter, or he knows that Callum was fighting somebody. And basically, he does ask about Callum, who was he fighting. Pretty much, Callum asks Rhea who was she fighting, and she just says nothing, saying it's good, let's go. Now, pretty much him saying you have to explain yourself first. Her saying I don't have to explain anything, throwing his bag at him, saying to let's get moving. And basically, Israel and Bait get ready, and pretty much Callum gets ready, pinning his pat back on his accelerate form, pretty much running past Rayla, but also stopping and waiting for Rayla to catch up. Now we switch back to the castle where the pretty much wizard or the villain of the story pretty much tells his son, the pretty much guard or knight, to tell the pretty much they're gonna go on a mission to find the princess, but they also told to pretty much return with the terrible news that the princess had perished. And even if they do find the princess, just keep on saying that they perished. And don't, try to look for them too much. And if you do find them, ignore them. And maybe kill them yourself. But basically, Callum, we just read to Callum, Rayla, and Israel pretty much, you know, well, walking up the mountain, trying to get to Zadia. Now, pretty much basically, we just switch back to the castle. Pretty much, the wizard just tells his son to kill the princess. They found them alive. Blah blah. Let's get back to the rest of the group. Israel, Callum, and Rayla, and pretty much they stop up the mountain halfway. Pretty much saying, let's stop to get some food. Pretty much, Callum forgets the food, and Callum and Rayla have a conversation, kind of arguing a little bit. Basically, Israel saying, "What are we doing? We're out of food. What are we gonna do? We're out of food." But basically, Callum looks at him, thinking about a type of situation that he can do to get some food pretty quickly. He thinks of trying to go accelerate again, but he thinks that it's a little bit too risky because Accelerate has, balls on his feet, and if he trips just a little bit down the mountain, he can possibly break a few bones. Now, he also thinks about going to Stinkfly, but half of the time when he goes that transformation, mainly it turns out bad, and half of the time he can't really, master it, and, he doesn't really know how to fly that good in Swamp Fly, and, Stinkfly form. He also tries to go maybe Diamond Head, maybe some more other creatures, but eventually comes to the conclusion that we just need to get food normally. They still argue about the whole entire, food situation, but Rayla picks up the idea to, drink her moonberry juice, taking it out, saying that I had plenty before one of you snobs drank it all. Pretty much them coming to the conclusion that, Bait, you know, drank it all. Now basically they get kind of angry, and she kind of argues with them a little bit, but just says that, just keeps on walking up the mountain. Now, basically, they're kind of, tipped off by this, but we can switch back to the castle. Same thing happens to the castle, and we can switch back to the princes. Pretty much Rayla, Callum, and pretty much Israel walk farther up to the mountain, jumping into pretty much feet of snow, pretty much running farther and farther, walking farther and farther up the mountain. Pretty much Callum seeing that this is a good opportunity to try to make this a little bit easier. So he tries to transform, but Rayla stops him, saying that if you transform, it might make some too much noise and maybe cause an avalanche. So basically, Callum stops and doesn't touch the Omnitrix. But Israel says to do it, so you can make it a little bit more easier. But he's distraught because he doesn't want to transform into something too heavy and cause an avalanche. And he also doesn't want to transform into something small, but get a heavy alien instead because, Omnitrix, messes up the orders of the transformations. And basically, Callum doesn't want to risk that. So Callum listens to Rayla's pretty much suggestion, and Rayla rushes him to say to come on and let's go higher and let's get this over with. Pretty much walking and leaving them behind. Not really leaving them behind, just walking a little bit faster. Pretty much Rayla and Callum actually do continue arguing about the egg, and pretty much they're arguing more and more. Callum and both of them start yelling at each other, and pretty much Israel telling them, guys, they're trying to get their attention, but them not being too ignorant and stupid to actually see it. But also, pretty much Israel explaining to them that, basically, you're causing an avalanche of your stupid talking. Basically, them being caught off guard after, a snowball falls on top of them. Basically, Israel tells them to stop talking, or it might get worse. Basically, them just getting out of the snow pile that they, were covered in. And them staying as quiet as possible, trying not to make the ice slide. So, have to leave, trying to keep quiet as possible, when Bait, his stupid self, burps and makes enough noise to make an ice slide and crack the ice. Basically, Israel, Rayla, and Callum get super angry and also get super scared and just stand there for a second being super shocked. Now basically Callum first instinct is to basically push Israel forward, try to get him, up the mountain a little bit quicker, grabbing Bait by the tail, just dragging him, and pretty much saying, let's go now. Pretty much them running up the mountain trying to get away from this, ice slide. They see that ice slide is coming down, so they run down, trying to get away from the ice slide. When Israel gets caught under the snow, and gets pushed down, and then eventually Rayla gets pushed down into the snow. Rayla gets out of the stand, grabbing Israel, pushing him out of the stand, saying let's go now, because more of this, ice or avalanche is coming, pretty much them running faster and faster. Pretty much Rayla saying to transform into something to help us out. Pretty much Callum looks at the Omnitrix trying to find something to help them, saying maybe this will transforms into the diamond head and makes a huge diamond fortress around them, or diamond pretty much cube around them, and hooking it down into the mountain, trying to keep it as sturdy as possible. Eventually the snow is enough to actually push the diamond block that he made around them, pretty much it falling over and tumbling down the mountain. The diamonds are broken by Diamond Head, him cracking it open, grabbing Rayla and Israel, pushing her out of the snow, because the snow did, pour in after the holes in the diamond, pretty much cube was broken. Basically, them getting pulled out the diamond cube in the snow, and them being saved by Diamond Head. Pretty much, he grabs both of them in each hand, throwing them down to the ground, and him falling onto the ground, pretty much breathing very heavily. He looks around, seeing a bunch of snow around them, saying that was close. Well, since Diamond Head threw both of them, he did throw them pretty narrowly. Pretty much, Edge is now on the ice with the pretty much dragon egg in his hands, him on the ice, about to shatter through it. Pretty much, Callum and Rayla get on the ice, telling him to stay right there, not to make any sudden movements and break through the ice. Pretty much, Callum looks at his Omnitrix. Callum doesn't get on the ice immediately because he sees that he's too heavy because he's diamond. So he tries to tell Callum to stay right there, him thinking of a solution to try to get Callum. So he makes a diamond spear and tries to give it toward Callum so he can grab it. It's too short, and Callum tries to make another one, but it's too late. Pretty much, well, pretty much, Israel doesn't break through the ice just yet. Pretty much, at that time, pretty much, Callum does time out, luckily, and does slightly get on the ice, going slowly towards Israel, grabbing the egg, passing it, or about to pass it towards, pretty much, Rayla. Pretty much, Rayla saying, I don't deserve your trust yet, but going on about how, basically, about the assassin's bind on her wrist, and everything about what happened and her oath to kill the princes. So, basically, they do accept and say thank you for telling us that, but she goes on to say to get the egg now and to, grab it. Her being kind of hesitant, and Rayla tries to tell him something else, but pretty much Israel says no, Callum says there's no time, he says to take the egg now. Pretty much Callum is kind of, hesitant saying to hurry up and take the egg already. Pretty much her saying, I had to tell you something, the king, but she gets thrown the egg, but her wrist is too hurt, and she drops the egg into the water. Callum gets super angry, saying, you dropped the egg. Pretty much Callum says you dropped it, and she said, I told you my hand was messed up. He said, just use the other hand. Why did you not use the other hand? Pretty much both of them starting to argue very much. And then being told from Israel to stop arguing. But Israel doesn't. Israel sees that they're not stop arguing and just jumps into the water, swimming down there for the egg. Pretty much, Callum says I had to go down there to save him, but pretty much, Rayla stops him, saying we have to, stop and wait for him because pretty much both of them wait for them, and they say that it's not coming back up. Now Callum tries to go for the Omnitrix scene that is till timed out, pretty much saying to himself that he's yawn. But pretty much Rayla assures him that he's not because the bind would have came off if he was dead. So pretty much pretty much Callum and Rayla start looking for Ez around the ice, trying to see where he is since he is still alive. They look around and they see him under some patches of ice, and they break it open, grabbing him, pulling him out of the water. Basically, Ez is saved by Callum and Rayla, pretty much them, well, relaxing and hugging each other, saying that you're safe, as blah blah blah, pretty much them having a moment. So, they see that the egg is, something's wrong with the egg. After they hug, they see that something's wrong with the egg, and they look at it, and the egg's light becomes dimmer. And that's where we're gonna leave it off, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed part 2. Part 3 will be coming out after What If Deku had the Ultimatrix. And after that video, I'm going to be uploading What If Deku. Um, I'm going to be uploading, What If Danny Phantom was in Young Justice, part 1. Now, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. See you guys later, and bye, dudes.